Rev up your engines!
Well, Ford's at it again. They recalled over 800,000 SUVs and pickup trucks. Explorers who get a fractured toe link on the suspension in the back so you could lose control of the vehicle. Not exactly what you want when you're driving down a highway. They say they may experience rear drivetrain disconnection. Boy, we're living in a world of doublespeak, you know? In other words, the drivetrain could just fall off when you're driving down the road. Not a good thing if you're going 70 miles an hour. Who knows what it's going to hit? You're going to lose control. If the driveline disconnects and falls off, you might get hit by it if you're too close to them. So if you're worried about it, get your VIN number. Put it in the National Highway Traffic Safety Association.org website. See if yours is going to be covered under this recall. And if it is, don't drive too fast. It's okay if you're going 10, 20 miles an hour and the driveline falls off, you know? You're not going that fast. But at highway speeds, if it breaks and comes off, just lack of quality. You know, some of this might have to do with the coronavirus stuff where they were just hiring people or getting their white-collar workers to do the blue-collar job on the assembly line. I warned that bad things are going to happen if they do that, and it seems that they're happening now. You got people that are white-collar workers, all of a sudden they're on the assembly line, and now these things aren't put together right. Hey, I put two and two together, if you ask me. I think it's affected a lot of it. Well, I guess Mercedes doesn't make them like they used to. Family in Illinois was driving a Mercedes ML 350. They got in a wreck, and it split it in half. One half went this way, one half went the other. Back in the day, that would have been impossible with Mercedes-Benz. They were made like tanks. They were solid. They were really strongly built. But, of course, everything's going cheaper now, make them thinner or lighter. And when this one hit a pole, it just split the thing completely in half and ripped it into two pieces. Just showing they don't make them like they used to. I mean, it's a horrible thing that happened to the family, but you'd think it wouldn't split in half. They should be solid enough if they hit a pole or something. Yeah, they bend, but not completely rip in half. It just shows how lighter made they are than they used to be. Because, of course, when it's ripped in half, then all kinds of things are going to happen. They found bodies in the front, bodies in the back, and then bodies in the middle where it ripped apart. If it wouldn't have ripped apart, who knows? If it would have taken a bang, maybe they just would have been injured. This shows they don't make them like they used to. People can say, oh, they're safer than they used to be. Well, a lot of it isn't true at all because they're not as solid. If you're in a big solid vehicle, generally you're going to fare better than if you're in something that's going to rip in half if you hit something. And they had to bring two tow trucks. One had to tow off the front of the vehicle, and the other had to tow off the back of the vehicle. It just kind of amazes me that these expensive Mercedes that used to be really solid built are that flimsy, that it actually ripped in half like you were taking a piece of bread and tearing it in half, throwing it to the ducks or something. Kind of amazes me that they can't take an impact like that without the thing splitting in half. It used to be a tree that bend the cars and stuff, but they wouldn't tear them completely in half. Basically shows they're just not made as well as they used to be made. They used to be more solid vehicles. That's the reason people bought them. They felt safe because they were solid, and they were. But now, hey, that's kind of amazing if you think about it. And I mean clean in half. This thing was torn right off. Front of the engine was in one part, and the back was in another part. So if you think you're going to buy a Mercedes, you're going to be safe inside, maybe think again. Okay, Parsons says, I'm a Missouri guy with a high-pitched sequel and no clue. Okay, it really means high-pitched squeal. He just spelled it wrong. Okay, what does he have here? He got a 92 Sierra, 128,000 miles. The squeal comes from the motor. It starts when I fire it up, and it gets higher pitched and stop when I get to 30. I tested the alternator. It works. I thought the belt was loose, but it's tight. What could it be? First thing you want to do, take the belts off. The noise goes away. You know it's the belts or what they drive. With them off, if it doesn't make a noise, start grabbing all the pulleys. You grab some and they're real tight, it means the bearings are wearing out. Could be the alternator bearings are wearing out. It could be charging, but the bearings could be wearing out. The water pump could be wearing out. The power steering pump could be making a noise. Check them all. And do look at all the belts closely, because even though they may not be cracked or broken, as they age, they stretch. And it doesn't matter. If they're stretched too much, you can tighten them as much as you can tighten them, and there's no more adjustment left, and they'll still squeal. You didn't change it. The first thing I do is if the noise goes away when you take the belts off, I just replace all of them. That'll probably fix your problem. If it doesn't, you got to figure out which one of the pulleys is worn out. Quasimodo, I can hear the bell says, how long should a rear main bearing seal last before it starts to leak? I'm looking at Toyotas and Hondas. All right, they're really well made. If the oil is changed regularly so the dirt doesn't get in and eat up the seals, I've seen Hondas and Toyotas that had 500,000 miles on them and they still had the original seals. The main thing is changing your oil and filter regularly, because not only does the dirt wear the metal of the engine, but it will eat up your seals. You got a shaft spinning on a seal. If it's dirty, then that's just like little pieces of liquid sandpaper, and it will eat the seals up. So if you change the oil and filter regularly, there's no saying how long those things can last. Now, some companies like Volvo have historically made weak ones and the seals leak. That's typical. But Toyota and Honda, they make pretty good seals and engines. And of course, also change your PCV valve every once in a while because that vents the crankcase. And if it clogs up, it doesn't vent it, then it can blow the seals out. And that's because it's clogged up. So you want to change the PCV valve every once in a while too. They go for years and years, but they only cost $8-10. So you might every 3 or 4 years just buy one and stick it on. Caesar Q11 says, should I buy this 03 Jeep Grand Cherokee? 4.9 liter, V8 4x4 with 96,000 miles. Guy wants $2,100. He says it needs a radiator and a brake master cylinder. Should I get it? Okay, you can get a radiator and brake master cylinder aftermarket at any discount auto parts store for like AutoZone cheaply enough. If it runs okay and shifts okay. Back in 2003, they were better made than they are today. That's just a fact. And if it does run good and shift good, it's okay, you know. I mean, they're gas hogs, everybody knows that. But a lot of times guys say, oh, it only needs a radiator and a brake master cylinder. Well, why does he think it needs a radiator? Because it's overheating? They can overheat for many reasons. I would have a mechanic check it out before you buy. Because let's say the head gasket's blowing on the engine. It's not the radiator. It overheats because the head gasket's blowing. Then you got to tear the engine apart, and that's a lot of money. So you'd probably be wiser to have a mechanic check it out before you throw any money out. Lowell Alapant says, I'm hearing a whistling noise in my Yaris hatchback when I start it. What can it be? Well, if it's only when you start it, generally means your starter Bendix drive is wearing out and it's mashing weird against the flywheel, make a whistling sound as it spins it around. Also, though, let's say the car starts up and it's running and the starter's no longer engaged. You let go of the key and the car's running and the starter's not spinning. If it's still whistling, you got some kind of a vacuum leak. Sometimes the idle air intake control valve does that. Sometimes you got a vacuum leak somewhere that'll whistle. Check all that too. Vacuum leaks can whistle, but of course they'll make it when the engine's running. The starter will only make it as the car is starting up and spinning. And as soon as you let loose the key, the car runs, but the starter doesn't spin anymore. If the noise continues, then it's not the starter. Probably a vacuum leak somewhere. M. Danicki says, Scotty, what do you think of a 2021 Honda Passport VTEC 6-cylinder engine? Well, they're new vehicles, 2021, but Honda makes excellent V6 engines. Honda makes more internal combustion engines every year than any other company in the world. So they make a lot of engines. They're very good engines. I'm not going to buy a new car myself. It's a waste of money. You can get used ones when somebody pays full price. I get them when they're 8-10 years old. I pay 10 to 15% of the original list price. And if you get a Toyota Honda, you still might have 80 or 90% of the car's life left. So what a deal. You save and you still got 80, 90% of the life. You can't beat that. You'll never get a great deal buying a new car. I don't care. Well, old Elon Musk is at it again. Now he's saying Tesla owners can get their premium driver assistance for $199 a month. Instead of having to pay $10,000 up front, he's accepting $199 a month. But there's a catch to that too, that if you have an older one, you got to pay $1,500 extra for an upgrade. Now, realize this guy back in the past said that this supposed self-driving system is going to be all working, which of course it isn't. That all the cars are set up for it. You don't have to worry. It's all there. Now he's saying, well, you got to pay me $1,500 to upgrade things and then $199 a month or $10,000 up front. I can't believe that people pay all that money for a vehicle and then they got to pay that extra stuff to get something that doesn't even work. It's not full driving, you know. He touts that, but in reality, it's just an assistance system. I drove one, and I mean, you see all these cool at night on the screen. You can see the other cars going back and forth, and I mean, it's like you're playing some kind of Space Invaders game or something. But you got to pay extra for it. I mean, now, it's called FSD, Full Self-Driving Capability. Yeah, capability is right. You still got to have a person there, and you got to pay extra for it. You're buying those outrageously overpriced cars to begin with. And of course, he has disclaimers too, which is more hilarious. And I quote, Tesla can increase the price for subscription anytime, but we'll give you a 1-month advance notice. You can also cancel the system if you do something inappropriate, whatever that means. And of course, if you don't pay, he'll cancel it too. He needs his money, you know. The guy's starving to death. If you want to go back in the past and see old Elon and his theory, he said that he'd have completely autonomous robo-taxis by 2020. That didn't happen. And that you can have cars without steering wheels or pedals in 2021. That didn't happen either. So... promises, promises, promises. And he just thinks people just continue to pay like a bunch of fools, sheep waiting in line. All I have to say is let's see what happens in the future. Since he promised all these other things that never came to fruition, he's probably got a whole bunch more fantasy ideas that he'll throw out as reality, and then as time passes, that didn't work out too well, did it? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.